I'm eating podcasts for dinner.
Alrighty, and we are live here on the Flat Five podcast with Carson Gant, aka One Up Drum Vids. How you doing today, man?
Everyone sneaks the R in there.
Yeah, it's so true. Absolutely. And it's funny too because I saw that before and I was like, it's not Grant.
Yeah.
Is it pronounced Gant?
Yeah.
Gant. You know what? I guess because there's a lot of Grants out there, so I apologize. It is Gant without the R. Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. So how you doing today, man?
How you doing?
Not too bad. We had the Wi-Fi and audio kerfuffles, but hopefully that's been sorted out now and, try our best to keep Zoom podcasts as smooth as possible.
You're sounding great, looking even better.
You are too kind, my man. I'm right back at you. So I gotta say, like I've been seeing your videos on Instagram for some time now. I want to say at least since 2018, possibly even earlier. When did you start, taking your music career online?
I started back in 2013 or 14, I think.
Hmm.
I was kind of making YouTube videos. The whole initial kind of idea of calling it One Up Drum Vids was because I wanted to take like little exercises and then just continue to one up them in every video,
Yeah.
and just make them harder and harder. And so my early YouTube videos were like, it started off with a paradiddle, and then that paradiddle started getting split across your limbs, and then it started getting
Yeah.
in a bunch of different ways, just that everyone else has done that already like a million times, but I did it in my own way, and it kind of culminated with one video that I was like, I don't really know how to make it harder than this. So Instagram kind of came out around that time. I don't know if I think in 2014 or 15, I guess. I know it was around before that, but that's when I
Yeah.
got up, and it was still 15-second videos then.
Hmm.
It's like, you know what? Like, it'd be kind of cool to just take 15-second snippets of like grooves that I really wanted to learn and kind of figure out how they worked, and then just crush it. And so I was like, there was no flams. Like, it's like I can do 15 seconds, and then I started doing that, and then all of a sudden they changed it to a minute, and it was like, oh shit, man. And I just, yeah, I think around that time, to answer your question, around probably on Instagram, like 2014 or 15.
Absolutely. So did the name One Up, is that inspired by like the skateboard world?
Not at all. You know what? I was on a run. I was on a trail run. I like trail running. I haven't
Hmm.
done any this year, but I was just running through the trees one day, and I was like, it just hit me. It was like One Up Drum Vids. I was like, I'm just gonna call it that, and then just like one up it. And then once I moved to Instagram, it wasn't that at all, and so the name doesn't really fit what it is. Yes, but it just I don't know. People are like, "Ooh, I guess so." Like, is it one up because you think you're one up in other people? I'm like, no, not at all. Yeah.
It's funny though because I remember like growing up, like I was like big into like Blink-182 and Travis Barker and of course a whole bunch of other drummers. But when you start listening to pop punk, you kind of just like, I have to get a skateboard. Like I have to fit the whole culture. And I used to watch the Barracks a lot on YouTube, and they had like the One Up, right? So I remember seeing it. I was like, I bet this guy skates. you know.
I did, but I was terrible. Yeah, all my friends were amazing, and I was like, my favorite thing was just go hit the mini pipe, just that little four,
Mm.
and just like rock and roll, tail, rock and roll, tail, 180 rock and roll. Paul.
Yeah, you did better than me. I used to just skate the bowl and skate verts. I used to just go up and down. I was basically like on a scooter at that point. But so one of the things that I saw on your Instagram, which I'm just looking at here, is that you specifically highlight the loops with shaker, tambourine, and hi-hat. And one of the things I wanted to ask is like when it comes to like the drum loop world, I feel that with the kick and snare, you can sometimes get away with it being a little bit more like quantized. But the hats or any sort of, lack of a better word, like leading subdivision, like your eighth notes or sixteenths, you kind of always need that human feel. Is that one of the reasons why you have the highlight on shakers, tambourines, and hi-hats in your loops?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, yeah, you nailed it. That's why.
Perfect. I was like, this is really, really getting me going. So what made you decide to start One Up Loops?
So I was working with Drumeo, and then I was doing the kid show stuff for them, and produced a show with some friends of mine called The Rhythmic Adventures of Captain Carson, and then I was going to join the team, and then I had this kind of, I don't know, realization that I love those guys. Like, got nothing but the best things to say about Drumeo and Jared and Dave and the whole crew. But I didn't really want to do the kid thing. I never wanted to
Mm,
do a kid show. It was kind of just kind of fell into my lap, and I did it, and it was really fun. But just so much work, such a weird day to day. Like, literally waking up and putting on a tinfoil suit and standing in front of a green screen by myself. Uh,
mm.
and then I was every character, so I had to do all the voiceovers for everything and write all the music and do the storyboarding. And then anyway, it was a lot of work. And then I was like, you know what, all I ever wanted to do is like put out beats and make music and track and just really dial in the recording side of things. So I was planning on doing it anyways, and I was kind of getting a bunch of grooves together, and then my neighbor, just this guy happened to move in a couple of doors down from me, named Spencer Cheyene, and he's like an award-winning mixing engineer. He's an incredible drummer. He's the drummer for Brett Kissel, who's like, one of the,
Mm.
Brett Kissel, big country
Yeah.
art.
Yeah, I've heard of him. I'm not huge on country, but I've heard the name many times.
Yeah, and Spencer's like the epitome of a studio rat. Like, he owned recording studios. He's the head engineer out at OCL, out here in Calgary, like one of the kind of premier studios in Western Canada. And
Mm.
he just like happened to move in next door. And I mean, maybe in New York or something, that's not that weird, but in Calgary, that's like one in a million. So
Yeah.
we were the same age, and he was like, "Yo, why don't we record?" He's like, he produces a ton. And he's like, "Why don't we record all the stuff that I'm always looking for, which is
Mm.
tambourine, shaker, and hi hat?" He's like, "Because you can program the rest. Like, man, playing in kicks and snares on the machine or something, it's so easy, and like it doesn't really. You just need a couple samples, and you can make it sound great with most modern music. But hi hats, and like, there's a reason why all the your favorite producers use real high. Like, you're watching
Yeah.
Count guys playing in all the hi hats, and then he's a lot of the time. Then he's programming in the kicks and snares, or even Calvin Harris. He's talked about always recording his own hi hats, and
Mm.
so we spent thousands of hours recording hi hat, shaker, and tambourine loops at every single tempo. So literally had a Pro Tools session that went 8 bars at 60, and then went to 61 and 62, and then after that we had to edit everything, and then had to label. Spencer did all the labeling, and a lot of the editing as well. But we just both, I mean, I'm so fast in Pro Tools now, I'm like a little wizard in there, you see. But yeah, so we just create like the ultimate tool, like a producer.
Mm.
And it's kind of funny because all the people like who are paying to use it, they're all like big, like we have some huge people on there, and like they're all like, we don't have a ton of people, but we have the people who are on there are like, you're like, oh my god, they're got awards, and they're doing records, and they're like real deal recording studio owners
Mm.
that are using this stuff. So we still haven't even done a single paid advertisement yet, so we're gonna get there. But so far everything's just been through word of mouth and through Instagram. And
Look, I gotta congrats. I gotta give congrats to you, man, because that's absolutely fantastic.
thanks, man.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the whole world on like that was one of the things I was gonna ask about too. It's like, of course, the hours is absurd. It's just crazy. But I was gonna ask, like, did you guys go in and say, okay, we're gonna do one Logic or one Pro Tool session that's got 8 bars at 60 BPM, 8 bars at 61, but you've done individual sessions for each BPM, and you've got something like what, 60 to 100 or something? Like, what is
Oh,
the BPM range?
no, the BPM range is 60 to 220.
Oh my Jesus.
Saying 60 BPM all the way up to 220 for all the 6/8 stuff. We got like 6/8 shaker and tambourine. The hi-hats, every hi-hat pattern goes from 60 to 160, so we did 100 BPM. And then the shaker and tambourines, we did 60 to 190. beats per minute. So that aren't 6/8. So yeah, it's nuts. Like it was like when you in one pattern. Spencer actually played all of the tambourine and shaker.
Hmm.
I did all the hi hats and he did all the percussion. He just played it way better than me. Sounded way better than me. So he did it.
So you have individual Pro Tool sessions for each, BPM as an increment of one, and then all the patterns.
Yeah.
That's insane. Like that's so awesome, but that's so wild.
What we do is like, man, I'm giving away all our seat. Well, it's not it's so long. It's just what you have to do is what you can imagine. You listen through, pick the 2 bar, everything's 2 bar loops, and you pick the best sounding 2 bars, and then maybe the next BPM isn't as good as that one. Like you just pick the magic bits, and then you build everything out of that without ever repeating anything in the same loop. So it's like it's a fully live performance. And then
Yeah.
we didn't just record every pattern at every tempo. We recorded every pattern again twice over as straight, slinky, and then swung. So every single pattern breaks down into different feels as well, which is like a dream come true because if you go on Splice and you type in swung shaker loop, you just get this like it's like a mess. It's like some are MIDI and you're like, what? Like so like with our product, like we just wanted to make sure that if like you had a swung or like a slinky 16th thing at 124 beats per minute, you literally go exactly to the BPM, pull it up, have all the patterns with different accents, and then just drag it into your session. And they all break down into over 20 microphones and mixes. Because we had like the microphones we had up, we had like everything you would ever want. Everything from
Holy.
38s to C12s to everything. So it's a freaky thing for sure.
To all of my producer friends that listen to this show, you guys need to drop all the loops that you have and use one up loops. Like the level of dedication and attention to detail and patience and tenacity to do all of that is wild. So seriously, man, like kudos to you. And you said his name was Spencer?
Yeah, I couldn't have done it without Spencer. It was
Kudos to both of you.
and our whole tech team. We got like 5 people working on it right now, so it's
Wow.
a full on thing. So
That is
yeah,
fantastic. That is like some of the coolest things I've heard, especially in like the loop world, because it's very easy to not I wouldn't say easy, but it's not that hard to have a great conversation about the feel that you have to create when you're actually performing the instrument as a drummer, whether it be the shaker, tambourine, or hi hat. You can find a drummer buddy that's aware and is able to play and then talk about like what I do here, what I do there, and find a lot more similarities. But to be able to recreate every possible scenario with those 3 instruments, those 3 percussion pieces, and then you get into the world of microphones and mixing, it's like you're just taking it to like 3 levels above what would be normal. So like that's just the coolest.
yeah. So I guess one up sticks now again. We're trying to one up
You're
it.
trying to one it up. Exactly. It's like it's not just straight eights. It's not just slinky. It's not just swung. It's all of that, and then every increment of 1 BPM, and then different mics and different mixes. So what's the next one up from there?
Oh, we just launched OneShot. Man, I'm really pushing it.
If you don't, if it's too much, then it's okay.
This is my day job, so I'm very proud and excited to talk about it. But
Mm,
yeah, go sign up. Give me a
absolutely.
But yeah, we just launched One Up World. So it's our OneShot World. So uh, it started off just hi hats. That was the first product that we made during COVID. It hit. We didn't listen to any of the rules. We hung out all the time and built this thing. Don't judge me. Didn't kill any grandparents. Maybe I shouldn't say shit like that. But anyways, we built that product, and then we were gonna put it out, but we were like, I don't know, man. Like it was like 300,000 hi hat loops, and we're like, maybe we should have had shaker and tambourine and make it like more of a full thing for people. And so we are like, okay, so we booked the studio again and just recorded nonstop for like 8 days, and then had to edit that, which took a year. So it's like the edit sessions on like 1 week is like over a year. And then
Jesus.
finally had the whole thing where like hi-hats, shakers, tambourines. And then we were like, okay, well, we want someone to be able to build a whole beat from what we have. So then this week we just launched our OneShot World. So it's all just kicks and snares for now. And we're going to be adding a ton more stuff, but it's essentially six 61 kicks and 61 snare drums. And when you download the one shot, it breaks down into multiple one shots of that snare at different velocities. So you don't get one shotted to death. Because the thing about like, once again, like going on Splice or something is you find a one shot and you love it and you download it, but then you just have the one. And who makes beats is like, I mean, one shots are cool, but you always wish you had like 4 of the same hit that are just like, just to give that tiny little nuance.
Yeah.
Sound like you're just getting blasted with the same one shot.
It has that human feel, which isn't always perfect. They're very close, but they're never like tut 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 like the same time the whole time, right?
Exactly. So we wanted to do that. So now we have that, and the thing is, all the corresponding numbers. So like say snare 26 was recorded at the same time as kick 26. So they mesh perfectly. I mean the fun is in mixing and matching them, of course, but but they're also recorded in families, so they're kind of like instantly meshed together if you want. And they were recorded in the exact same space as our 300,000 hi-hat loops, and so when you hear them all together, there's just this cohesion that you're like, yeah, that's the shit. It's yeah.
That's unreal. Are you kidding me? That's the sickest thing ever. That is so sick. Like, man. So right now you have like just kick and snares, and you have the snares at like different velocities. Do you have the kick like feathered, like drummers like Dave Elich talk about driving the kick and then releasing the beater off of the batter head? Do you have it where it's like a feathered, like heel down, release off the batter head, and then just like punching it? Like, do you have different velocities in the kick as well?
That's so funny. Literally, I would go light. It was like light berry, medium berry, hard berry, light puffing off, medium puffing off. And so, yeah, exactly what you just said, for sure.
That's wicked. Oh man, that's so awesome. Like I really appreciate the level of dedication and attention to detail, because I think just in life in general, that goes such a long way. So that is just like the ultimate badassery right there. That's sick.
No, man, thank you. Yeah. So, anyways, I'll keep talking about one up loops all day. But
Well, listen, I'm definitely like I'm in the Toronto area, and there's a lot of producer friends that I have, and I'm definitely going to be sharing this with them, because I mean, there's always that conversation, especially as like, superior drums or even just Logic drums come out and they improve, and everyone immediately runs to the like, this particular type of instrument or this drummer or whatever is going to become obsolete in 2 years. And it's like, not really, like on some levels, yes, but I think it's more so just that the musician world is just changing, it's adapting, it's evolving. And so when you have something like One Up Loops that's still, really paying attention to every single possible scenario and then the detail of each scenario, it's like you can't substitute the real thing if you're going for the real thing. Like if you're like, there's an artist that I perform with, his name is Wolf. He's the guitarist in my solo project, and I'm the guitarist in his solo project. And I think it's just his first album, he used like Logic drums. And it's like, when you literally have nothing else, Logic drums are pretty solid. But the minute you're like, okay, now I want the real thing, you're going to go after the real thing. And if you're not a drummer and you have access to something like One Up Loops, where it's like, I can get the exact feel that I want without necessarily being a drummer, I'm going to go for the real thing because it's there. Right. And so it's like I always have this, conversation I shouldn't say always, but from time to time I have this conversation with like guitar buddies, because guitar buddies are always like, oh, like drummers are, soon enough going to be like a thing of the past. And I was like, have you ever heard a guitar on Logic before? Like, it sounds terrible, like the same thing is for drums. It's just like, you have to have the ear. You got to be able to recognize like, this is real, this is not real. Right now, of course, there's music where the non-acoustic drum set is more appropriate for that. Like, if you're listening to like 100 Gex or whatever, right? It's like, if you're not going to use like a 1960s Ludwig kit on that music, it's hyper pop, right? but there still needs to be an element of humanness and feel. And so those producers are still sitting there and nudging stuff around. They're not making it perfectly quantized on the beat, the exact same volume and velocity every single time, because it just doesn't have that feel anymore. And so, like I said, like the fact that you guys are going through and creating each individual scenario and making it perfect is chef's kiss. It's amazing. I love it.
Chef's kiss. Take it. I don't. I mean, I use the site every day, and I'm a drummer. Like I use it for the tambourine and the shaker loops. Like I make beats and I have fun making beats. I don't get paid to make program. Usually, I get paid to do drum tracking for people, and people are sending me tracks all the time from all over the world. Like today, I'm a guy in Tasmania, Australia, which is kind of funny, and hope he's safe. Those things are vicious little creatures.
Yes.
I'll record my drum tracks and then also just send whoever, like the producer that I'm working for, like a whole percussion track as well, and they're just like, what? Like, thank you, like I'm gonna use you,
Yeah.
and because like, oh my god, who does that? And you're like, yeah, I just literally trade some loops over. But like, because I have tambourine rolls and shaker rolls coming out of everything, it's like it sounds undeniably live because you're,
Mm.
of course it's live. It's like it's a performance. Like it comes in with one pattern and then it changes, and then I ride the volume up, and then I put a little roll at the end of a section, and it's all with the same mic, even though it's different little pieces. And yeah, it's just it's such a nice tool. And not only that, do they get a deliverable that they're like, thank you for the percussion I didn't ask for, and you're like, no problem, didn't charge any extra for it. You're also, I use it for the click track, like when I'm tracking. If it's a slinky track, I just load in the slinky tambourine. I don't even have a click going, because why would you
Mm.
click if you could listen to an actual like feely
The feel.
totally. So
Absolutely.
I track almost everything to these loops. Like I just use it as the ultimate click track. I'm like, I pull in the track, I go find a loop that sounds amazing, and I record my drum parts.
That's genius, though. I love hearing that. Like, especially with the slinky. It's funny. I've heard a few synonyms of that, like rhythm feel as well, like slinky, skip beat, like the Dilla feel, and to like try and like you have the click, which of course is there, but to just actually use the live performance, like it immediately, like my background is like half Dominican, half Italian, and all the Spanish music that I listen to, especially when they have like a drummer, you can tell that the whole band's almost following the percussion player or players plural. And it's like that is the live feel, that is our metronome. And so for you to do the same thing with your tambourine as your click, it's like, why would I substitute the real thing for a click when I just have it there? That's really going to drive and deliver that feel for this track.
Yeah. No, exactly. Yeah.
It's genius though. I love it though. Like it's such interesting, conversation, especially as a drummer and here on the Flat Five, like there's a good balance of conversation on topics that I literally know nothing about, whether it's like photography or music industry stuff or whatever. And then, us and our friends just like shooting the shit and being goofy, and it's not of any sort of, it's not a conversation with any real depth, but it's still fun. And then I get to have drummer conversation where it's like, fuck yeah, man. I love this instrument. The drums are just the shit. They're so good.
Best.
So what made you sort of pick up the drums? Like, did you start playing drums at a young age? Did you come from a musical family? Was it one of those scenarios where, I walked by a music shop, I saw a drum set, and I was like, I need to have them. One of those. Like, what's your story as a drummer?
Yeah, it was kind of a little bit of all those things you just mentioned. It was definitely, I grew up in a decently sized family. I have three brothers, so there's four boys and my folks, and we kind of grew up out in the country, and just grew up going to church and seeing the drums, and I got into the drums one summer because my brother was able to take home the drum set from the middle school. He was much older than me, and they were just at the house one summer, so there was just
Mm.
and I got to play it, and then I really liked playing it, and my parents were like, all right, we'll buy you a drum set if you read the entire Bible. And I was like, all right, let's freaking go. And so I started reading it in grade four, I think, grade 3 or 4, and then I finished it like 2.5, 3 years later, and read the entire Bible, and they'd like somewhat quiz me on it, and Yeah, that I think like it wasn't even that my parents were like super religious. They were just like, let's. I don't want a drum set. Let's give him something impossible.
Let's see how committed he really is to the drum set.
Yeah, and so they'd be like, I don't even think they really even knew the stories like that. They're like, so what's happening right now? Like, I'm like, I don't know, yeah. And I'd have they'd be like, oh shit, sounds like he is reading. So yeah, that's how I got my first drum set. And the records that were coming out that time were like, yeah, Enema of the State, um, Limp Bizkit.
Ah, yeah.
And it was like really like pop punk and then like hip hop and rock
And
mixing.
metal, yeah, the new metal scene.
Sitting there trying to figure out Limp Bizkit drum patterns with like bands and yeah, and then just kept playing. So, but yeah, it was just kind of like it was the instrument I was drawn to for sure. Obviously.
That is so funny though. Like I've asked this question a lot of times, especially to drummer friends or just musicians in general. Like I interviewed a Canadian artist. His name is Chastity, and asked like how he got his start, and he was like, I just gravitated towards singing. Like it was just something I wanted to do. I found myself always writing, and the two things clicked. And I've asked other drummer friends and they're like, yeah, like I come from a musical family, like none of them like really professional, but they just had music. There was a piano in the house, they maybe had like a kick and snare in the basement and it was kind of there. And then there's always the drummer that's like, my parents really didn't want a drum set in the house, but they also didn't want to take it away from the kid. So we had to see how serious the kid was about playing drums. And I see it a lot because I'm a music teacher here in a town called Kleinburg, which is like the northern area of like Toronto. And students will come in like 5 to 7 years old, with sticks. They're like super excited. And the parents are like, make sure he plays, make sure he's practicing, because if I'm gonna get this drum set, like he better be doing it. And it's so funny because I had the same thing growing up. My folks, or I should say Santa Claus, got me Guitar Hero World Tour for my like Christmas birthday because they fall dangerously close together. And I remember like playing the game and going through the whole thing like really fast, or faster what felt like a fast as a kid, right? And then Guitar Hero World Tour had this option where you could create music on it. And so like I would try and play like little grooves and shit. And I haven't been able to find them, but it got to the point where I was bored of the game. I'd take my little iPod shuffle and play along to like Thick Freakness by the Black Keys or Under an Iron Sea by Keen, like just like, basic fatbacks and backbeat patterns and stuff. And then I actually broke the drum set. And then Santa got me a second drum set, but it's a warranty. And then I broke that kit too, and then I think I was like in my room one day playing along with this like broken Guitar Hero kit, and my dad recognized the groove that I was playing. He took me to a drum lesson with my first drum mentor. His name is Dario, and who actually runs a great music school. So shout out to Dario. But it was like I had to commit to 2 lifelines of a Guitar Hero drum set before my parents were like, okay, we're going to put you in lessons, and then you're going to do lessons for a couple months, and then we'll see about getting you a kit, because it's like, I totally get it. Like it's a loud instrument, and it's not like in your first year, you're playing bossa nova grooves where it's super soft and subtle. Right. So it's like, really got to make sure that the kid's 100% before he commit to this thing, which is so funny. So the fact that you read a Bible just continues in this line of your amount of patience and tenacity to just get the right thing done, which is fantastic.
Not like the neighbors are so stoked when they see you loading a drum set in the front door either.
It's so true. Like I grew up in a town called Bolton, which is like just small towns all around Ontario. And I want to say like grade 10, I got a very crappy pair of like Gibraltar double kick pedals, and I got heavily into like the Warp Tour genre and the Warp Tour world. And one of my neighbors who I used to babysit as kids, they were like, what are you doing on the drums? Like, this doesn't sound good. And I was like, I'm trying to figure out the world of gent. And they're like, can you go back to like the other stuff, which was, Blink and Billy Talent and Led Zeppelin and shit. And then I was like, no, it's gonna sound good one day. And they're like, it doesn't, because it's just like digga digga ba-da, digga ba-da, ba-da, and it's just flamming everywhere. And I was like, okay, I see where you guys are coming from. It's probably not the most audibly pleasant, type of grooves. But it's so funny though. I love like those stories, especially about like musicians like finding their ways and the whole like finding your first love with the instrument is some of my favorite stories with musicians in general, especially when drummers and musicians in general have that aha moment, where you're practicing something and you feel that you've like played it and you're like, this felt the way it's supposed to sound. Do you recall one of those moments that you had as a young drummer,
Where it sounded good.
at least where it felt good, where it felt like it sounded good?
Yeah, I mean, there was times like, when I don't know, you're young and you just took a massive hit of something you shouldn't have, maybe feeling pretty good. I mean, half the time on playback, wasn't so good, but definitely in the moment, you're like, this is what I'm meant to do with my life. And you listen back, you're like, oh, yeah. Like definitely that happened to me a lot. Like, yeah, I was a little bit of a stoner in high school.
Right.
So kind of just doing that all the time and quite enjoying the combination of
Mm.
drums and that. I don't really do that anymore.
That's all good.
I know what you're asking, but definitely had aha moments that were like not real aha moments. Um, but yeah, I think just playing with people. I think it was like when I got to this place where I could actually I don't know, where the technical hangups weren't hanging me up, and I could actually use my ears and listen to what else was going on and kind of
Mm.
try to fit into the situation. I mean, those were always the magical moments I've been able to have and hopefully help create on a good day. Always come when I'm playing with other people. So
Right.
yeah, just really was lucky to grow up with some really great teachers and people around me that wanted to play and jam and I've always loved playing music with people that I love.
Yeah.
Like I've never been that interested in kind of taking gigs just for the sake of taking them. I'm pretty picky. I kind of like playing with the people I like playing with, and not that I'm not open to new experiences, but
Of course.
I just yeah, I really like playing with the people I like to play with,
Of
and
course. Yeah, absolutely. So growing up in church, did you play other instruments? Like, did you have like, the chance to play piano or play bass or acoustic guitar or anything like that?
yeah, I can play a little bit of piano and acoustic guitar.
Did
I
you have that at a young age?
Yeah, I my parents had me in piano lessons kind of long before I had a drum set. So
Mm.
I was a bit of a weirdo. I would just learn everything uh muscle memory and by ear, and like the same songs. I've got like a photographic memory for like guitar and piano. Like the songs I've learned, I could play them with my eyes closed anytime. They're just in, but drums aren't like that for me. Like for whatever,
Really?
like what was that groove again? Or like I drums are like in the one ear out the other. Like I just don't
Wow.
yeah, I mean, I play them all day.
Mm.
I just don't retain the same kind of bits, which people might think is kind of funny because the stuff I post is like quite intricate and like you got to
Oh
really.
yeah.
But if you asked me the next day to do it, I'd be like, I would like need to like sit there and figure it out again.
Really? That's actually the opposite of what I assumed. Like after, like hearing you say that guitar and piano is muscle memory, I was like, okay, it's got to be drums as well, because you would just think that cross pollination happens
Yeah,
across the instruments.
yeah, it's weird. I don't know. I don't have a memory. Like if you like, I don't remember songs. Like I'm not a song guy.
Mm.
Sorry, not I'll continue on with that thought because that might not make any sense. But I'm not a song guy. Like people aren't gonna hire me to do like the wedding because I know all the songs. Like I've
Right.
got friends who just know every single song. They're just like,
Oh yeah, there are some guys that their brain is just an IMDb of like the top 40 list from 1970 to 2020.
yeah, like I was just playing a gig this weekend and they called out "Let's Get It On," and I was like, I've never played it in my life. And I was like, I don't even know this song. But then I heard the intro. It's like wow, 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 and I was like, oh, boom. There it is. Yeah, I'm not the guy who knows like a million songs and
Mm.
like kind of. I've always kind of been like kept my antenna up for grooves that I was like, "Whoa, what's that?" Like the little Rubik's cubes, and I just try and find things that I'm like, I have no idea how they're doing that, and then try and figure it out,
Mm.
as opposed to like being able to play something from start to finish. So I
I have a groove for you that might pick your ear because I was literally listening to it on the drive over here. Are you a fan of Japanese 1970s city pop?
I don't know.
So it's like it's music that's very similar to like Sonic, or it's kind of like video game music from like Sega and like I'm not really big on video games, so like of course all the product and brand names are like escaping me. But there's a fantastic group called Cassiopeia. I'll send it to you. They have a song Asayaki, I think is how you pronounce it. I don't want to butcher it. But it's like great musicianship. It's very technical, but they're not writing melodies or parts that are saying, hey, look how technical we are. It's just like as a musician, you can recognize that there's such a high level of like feel and awareness happening. But as a non-musician, like this just feels really great to listen to. So like with Latin music, like I find a lot of times Latin music is a language that anybody can get behind, which is a high level of musicianship, but it feels really good and they're not playing anything really complicated. The technicality is that they're playing something simple really well. And so I've been finding that this like city pop sound is very much in that realm. And as we've been talking about hi-hats, in the last like previous topic, this song has this hi-hat feel that's like it's almost like the hi-hat is trying to emulate a shaker, but as he's playing like his 16ths, he's still playing the hat and the snare together. It's not like he's doing like the alternate singles. He's still playing it together. So he's doing like some little thing. And I was like, I want to hear what Carson thinks about this hi-hat groove because it's got like this feel to it,
You want me to pull it up on my end, or are you gonna play it?
If you sure, I won't be able I don't know if it'll come through, but maybe pull it up on your end and have a listen to it. I'd say go to like let's say like the 30-second mark is when that song should kick in. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, the band's called Cassiopeia and the song's called Asayaki. So Asayake. It's the opening of their album called Asian Dreamer.
Asian Dreamer. Asian Dreamer. There we go. The first track.
Yeah, like a good 30 seconds in.
Like he's riding on the bell.
He's using sorry?
Sounds like he's riding on the bell.
Yeah, on the bell there, there's it like the groove maybe comes in around a minute. The hi-hat groove comes a bit after that. Yeah.
I might. That's dope.
It's really great, eh? After hearing it, because I've just started listening to this like style and genre. After hearing it there, it doesn't sound like the hats at the same time with the snare, but like that hi-hat, like chaka, like it's got like that skip, like it's almost like its own thing. It's almost like a shaker or a maraca,
Like if you're going da 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 ga da da da, and you just do the three in the row with the left hand. Like a lot,
Right.
kind of even especially if you're doing that, like say you're lilting them a bit, like that Brazilian, more like the
Yeah.
you're kind of, but not that he's doing that,
Right. But it's emulant.
yeah, but like to get that left hand going, I couldn't tell if it was playing on top of the snare either, but I'll do that a ton where I'm like I'm filling in the backbeat
Right.
to so that it is a constant stream through
Yeah.
those tempos. That is like real tricky to kind of get it going. But
Absolutely. But it's fun stuff. Like I love, I love little small things. It's not like he's playing some crazy fill or some groove that's like in 7/4 with, or with triplets and shit or whatever. Like it's just like it's a 2/4, it's a backbeat, but just the way he's playing the hats has got this subtlety that's where the curiosity is like, man, how is he doing something that is on a technical level more in the intermediate advanced world, but it's still so palatable to the general audience or mainstream. Like those are my favorite moments in music.
No, I hear you. I mean, that's why I'm so into instrumental hip hop. I like all kinds of hip hop, but
Oh
you
yeah.
can pick the drums apart a little bit easier in the instrumental stuff. But also I love how the vocal plays on top of. You can learn so much by how an MC is kind of placing their
The syllables.
yeah over the groove. That's like it's a very cool insight into
Absolutely.
particularly with someone who's got incredible time. I love like
Yeah.
Freddie Gibbs and stuff like that. You're just like
Yeah.
flow over it. You're just like, damn.
It's rad. And on the conversation of hip hop and instrumental hip hop, that's where I got the introduction to your content you're playing in your videos is the fact that you're going through like, a Tribe Called Quest, Slum Village. If I'm not mistaken, you've done some videos on like hieroglyphics and stuff like that. Like being able to, play that music and actually make it feel good. And so what was your introduction to the like, let's say like the early 90s to like 2020s like hip hop? Like what was your start in that?
Um, well, like I said, when I was in school and like Dre came out, everyone was listening to that and
Yeah.
some of that stuff. But really, I didn't really start playing that stuff, the straight hip hop stuff, till much later. I had a teacher. He was like my favorite drummer ever to live ever. His name is Ray Garraway, and he was. Do you remember that? You remember that guy Chaos?
Of course. Yeah.
His drummer, but that was like the tip of the iceberg. The guy was doing the most insane drum and bass you ever heard. He could
Wow.
play with the heaviest jazz cats ever. Like he was just a freak. He lived and breathed drums, um, every day. Like
Wow.
all he did ever, and he was just so excited about drums and where he heard it, it was just unbelievable. Like I'd take him over anyone. Like he's my favorite drummer to listen to ever. And anyways, I was lucky enough to study with him for a bit, and he was just like just his enthusiasm about dissecting these grooves and figuring out the little edges, like just trying to figure out with the human body how to like square off these rhythms that were kind of programmed or
Right.
slightly a particular way. Um, like one of the first lessons we had, it was I can't remember the groove, but um, it's just one of those samples where someone's triggering a soul sample or like an old school funk thing, and it's just a little too short for the bar, and then it repeats.
Right. Yeah.
And it was kind of like just to sit there and like to think like that. It's like, okay, I'm gonna take a groove and I'm gonna squish the whole thing a little bit to one side, and then play it, and then start it with as much intention as like I was playing it continuously, and like little things like that I would never think of. And you're like, when you start thinking that way and start thinking of like the gravity of like starting a groove after a little gap, it's like it drops heavier, and like
Yeah.
all kind of for me it was because I didn't hear that stuff. And then when I started really getting into it and being like, oh man, like I just got so into like the gravity of beats, because
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, it's all just about your intention and
Yeah.
like
It's like how you're pushing or pulling, like those downbeats and upbeats.
exactly. Yeah, just pushing, pulling, leaving things out, like where the space is, and and then also like to play the things once you've squared them off. It's like, okay, I can play it, but then it's like, but can you improvise within that new framework? And so then you kind of have to build these little like internal claves essentially to
Yeah,
be able to play something that you don't just derail the entire thing. And that's a universe in that. And so
absolutely.
just to get like a little bit free within these grooves that you're kind of, you can get locked inside of them pretty easy because they're
Yeah.
tricky. Like, you're trying to, one hi-hat's kind of late, but then you're rushing over here and the snares are popping a little bit. And then like once you figure out the groove, like that's an accomplishment in itself. But
Yeah,
then
absolutely.
throw one variation in there, you're like, you got to figure it out. And then you have to build little internal structures so that you can do that. And
For
that's
sure.
where the journey for me has been, at least. Yeah.
And it's funny because I remember there were two specific videos that I saw um, back at my days when I was at Humber College here in Ontario. It was a video of Jojo Mayer at I think they pronounce it Pisic, but I've heard people say Pasic. But
Yeah.
that like percussion art society thing, right? And then there was a video of Benny Greb. I can't remember the bassist's name, but he was talking about like,
John Davis,
is it John Davis?
probably. Is that the guy who plays with him in Nerve? Oh, sorry, Benny Greb. Oh,
Benny Greb, yeah. There's a video of Benny Greb playing with this like with this bassist, and he's talking about like what it sounds like when a drummer is playing just behind the beat, right on the beat, and just ahead of the beat, right?
that is DVD, the Art and Science of Groove.
Yes, exactly. So I saw that one clip, and then I saw Jojo Mayer on Pisic, maybe like 2017, talking about like literally mixing your drum set, like similar to the Mark Juliana like 7 sounds, like just the first three. He's like playing a groove, and then he's like, I'm just gonna raise the snare, but by raising the snare, what I'm actually doing is lowering the kick and the hi hat. So now the snare is cutting through. Because if I'm playing, the hi hat and kick at like mezzo forte or whatever, and then I play the snare at forte, the gap is that big. But if I take my hi hat and kick and I lower it, and then I just bring the snare a little bit more, and now the snare gap is like this. So his video on mixing yourself on your drum set, deciding how you want the levels to be simply by how much energy you're putting through, and then Benny Greb's video on playing late and playing rushed. It had this like poof moment with like hip hop music, and I was like, oh, I can combine these two ideas, being a little bit late, being a little bit ahead. I can apply that to one specific part of the drum set, and then I can mix the drum set. So I'm like combining these two ideas across these videos while I'm in like a little drum module practicing. I should be practicing like Art Blakey, phrases and shit because it's jazz school. But here I am like watching hip hop videos and stuff. And that's when I had that click of like, oh, this is what is making me so interested about hip hop music. It's not just the bars or the lo-fi kind of sound or the fact that it's vintage or whatever. It's like specifically on the drums, the fact that the drum set is got this hi-hat that's just sitting perfectly, but it's not the loudest thing in the mix. The kick and snare are, one's really low, one's really high, and then they're all skipped and displaced, and it's like, this is pretty fucking rad. Like, I like this.
Yeah, totally. How long were you in Humber?
I only went to Humber for a year. So I graduated 2017. I did that for a year, and then I was about to go into the bachelor program and declined the offer because I was just doing some other stuff, and I wanted to make sure if my parents were going to spend an absurd amount of money on music school that I was 100% dedicated. But then COVID hit, so it kind of lucked out that year 3 and year 4, which in my opinion are the most important, wasn't spent during COVID. And I feel terribly for all my music friends that went there. But yeah, to answer your question, I only went there for a year, just the intro program.
That's still like Larnell and Kelso, Mark Kelso.
Yep. Yes.
The two main guys.
Kelso, yeah, they were the two main guys. Kelso just finished his last year prior to the start of this year. So now it's just Larnell. I was studying with a fine gentleman named Ben Ball. He was my teacher. I'm not sure how much of the other Ontario scene musicians but I had like Tanya Gill and Amanda Tosoff, two fantastic piano players. I had Jeff King, who's a great saxophone player as well. Jeff King was probably one of the best teachers that I had because he was able to, best teachers not for the drum set, because I don't know how you feel about this, especially someone who plays other instruments, but I feel like the conversation that drummers have about their instrument is like Italian, and then everybody else is like speaking like American English. Like everybody's got this one universal language, and then drummers are here just like Kit Kats. Like we're talking about something totally different because we don't have like, you can tune a drum set, but to tell a drummer play A minor to C major on your drum set, it's like, good luck, right? So Jeff King, that teacher, was able to translate these piano ideas with the drum set, and then I was able to take these drum phrases like the so what phrase, like the 1 and 2 and how do you apply that to the piano, and like start to see this like interwovenness across the pitched instrument world and then the drum set, right?
Right,
So,
right. Ah,
but
cool.
yeah, Kelso's. Sorry, you were saying?
Oh, yeah, no, I'm just a knuckle dragger. I'm a mouth breather, and I just hit that animal skin with wood sticks.
I can't believe you said a knuckle dragger like a monkey. Like,
You can't even afford the dead animal skin heads. Take dead animals. Yeah, no. Whenever I hear my bandmates and talking about music, it is humbling. I'm like, oh man, I don't know my ass from a little. Like, yeah, okay, let's go. 1, 2, 3. Always learning. I love music. I listen to a bunch of music all the time, but that's
absolutely.
you play something. That's
Thank you.
amazing.
Yeah, I found that the bands I was playing in, I was trying to articulate like a melody that I had or a chord riff or chord progression or guitar riff or whatever, and I was like really struggling to articulate it. And so thankfully, like I started learning piano at Humber, and that translated to guitar because they're very similar. They're all semitonal, but the navigation, of course, is different, right? Um, and then once I was able to do that, then I was playing in bands where I was like, hey, I have this idea, but it was still very much like, you're the drummer. It's like a goalie saying, hey, man, when you're on a breakaway, you should probably still have two hands on the stick, just like control the puck, right? And so.
Back check. We need a back.
Yeah, exactly. Of course, the goalie's telling everybody to back check, right? Did you ever play hockey?
No, I'm a diehard fan though. It's so pathetic. Like I'm like a baby deer on skates. I can barely. It's so brutal. Like, I'm one of 4 boys in Alberta, and it was like my parents were like, "All right, either all gonna ski and snowboard, or you're all gonna play hockey because we're not driving you guys around all day every day." And I want to snowboard, so I kind of went the snowboard route.
Nice.
Love that. Love the mountains. Love to ski and everything. And but yeah, never played hockey. But I don't miss a game. It's terrible. Like what a terrible way to spend your life. But that's I just sit in front of the TV with my practice pad and watch the Calgary Flames.
You know what? That's actually a good time, and it's funny. I was about to ask. There is a guy that went to my high school that plays on the Flames now. Magiapone.
Danny!
Yeah, him. Yeah, exactly. He's from my town. I don't know him personally. I know his sister, but yeah, he went to the same high school.
Yeah, he's great. He's amazing.
Yeah, I hear great things.
He scored like close to 40 goals last season.
Shit, really?
He's unreal.
Damn.
Like, definitely over 30. He's
Wow.
oh, great little Italian. Yeah.
The Italian style, yeah, from like Bolton, Woodbridge area. It's like the Munja Cake Italian area. But yeah, it's funny. Like I grew up playing hockey. Technically not first. Technically, I started with Taekwondo, but I was a goalie, and so
You're a goalie?
I was a goalie. Yeah, considering my height and stature, I was like those Mario bricks that you step on to like get a point. Like I was like that figure, like inside the net, just like this,
I figure, yeah,
I'm 5'5". I'm like when I go down to the butterfly, like I'm just below the crossbar.
oh yeah, and all the NHL goalies are like 6'5".
Yeah, they're like basketball players, like they're just super tall for some reason, or they're ridiculously agile and they're still 5'11", like Jonathan Quick. Like it's crazy. But growing up playing hockey, it was very much like as a goalie, it's like this is my world and I'm always doing something, or my hands are on the bar, but I'm always on the ice. Like I'm here the whole time. And so when I really started getting into drums, where it wasn't just hobbyist, it was like started paying attention to like the industry and how to be a professional and stuff. There's like so many similarities between the two jobs, the two positions. Like you're kind of always there, you're like the last line of defense in a way, but it's like, it's like, I saw a video of Dave Grohl talking about how a great drummer, takes a band of like average musicians and makes them great, and I was like, I saw a lot of that in the hockey world, not speaking about myself, but just as the position. Like there's a lot of teams where, they've got great goal scorers, they got great defensemen and stuff like that. Each line is kind of evened out. There isn't one massive, megastar kind of player. but then they have just like a goalie that stands on their head, whether it's like Lundqvist or Hasek or you know, Jonathan Quick or whatever. It's like those are guys that just really hold it down. And then, you know, I just see that in the drummer world where like I love Blink-182 to death, but I don't think that. Sorry, say that again.
Say no more. I mean,
You-
we all are like, Mark and Tom don't really know what they're doing.
They're like the chord progression is 3-5-0-3, you know, like they don't even know the notes. But then Travis Barker's like, oh, I'm just gonna put a Latin feel over What's My Age Again, and it's gonna go over well. And then he just like, you know, makes the band, right? And it's like they still like need each other, especially like musically speaking. But on a technical level, it's just like that guy just holds it down, man. Like he's the shit, you know. So yeah, like I always saw a lot of similarities between the two, and you know, back to the conversation of like multi instrumentalism. Like I found when I started um, learning the instrument and then going to like music books so that I could be able to at least teach like beginner guitar and piano books. Like we do you guys have the Alfred series like in your schools there, or is that just an Ontario thing?
Name.
Perfect. Yeah. So like Alfred and like Hal Leonard and shit like that, like all the scholastic books, right? It's like I was like, let me just go through books like 1 to 5 for piano and 1 to 3 for guitar, and just be able to like understand the concept and be able to reinterpret it in 5 different ways so I can cater to the student. And I was like, okay, I've done all this like technical work. How can I actually use this that benefits me as a musician as opposed to just a music teacher and an employee? And so I started like learning guitar progressions or piano progressions and then making my own instrumental loops to then drum over them. And then I was like, okay, well, I'm halfway there to like songwriting. You know, I just got to start coming up with my own melodies. And then I found that like by doing that, I had this whole new approach to drums where I found that I was like playing less notes as a drummer, and I was like really valuing space, because the idea of like legato and staccato doesn't exist too much with drums. You have like a cymbal mute, you know, if you really get to that advanced level, you're hitting a floor tom and muting it, or you're, you know, hitting the bell and cupping it and doing that kind of thing, right? But it's like that's really not the beginner to intermediate world of drumming. It's like that advanced level where you're really paying attention to the notes, right? And playing those other instruments is what was like, you have to strum and then stop. You have to literally stop creating sound. Whereas when I hit that kick drum, it's like, ugh, you know, it's that long note and I'm not considering it. And so I found when I started like reassessing my approach to the drum set after spending a good year or two on the other instruments, it's like, oh, I don't need to always fill in all the notes with ghost notes. Like I can just play 2 just on the E and of beat 4, right? Or the and of beat 4 for 2. And that's going to get the exact same effect as that I need from those ghost notes. And you start to get into that like less is more kind of world, right? And you start to see it all as like a tool. Like this is a groove that I literally want to play as many notes as possible. And then this is a groove where I just need 4 notes, and both of them are achieving the effect. That fun stuff. I just want to make sure that the data is still clicking. My data just like did a little glitch for a second, but it's good now.
I have to go pick up my son from school in
Right.
6 minutes. But I was gonna say, it's funny how much better people sound, a lot of drummers, when they stop playing ghost notes. You ever notice that?
Oh yeah, that's me.
It's so funny, it seems like kind of when you're starting to play drums, you're like, oh, I'm supposed to play all these ghost notes, or like, you know, you're like always trying to figure them out, and it's like a bit.
Yeah.
A lot of the time, as soon as the drummer just like stops playing ghost notes, you're just like, oh, that sounds so much better.
It's so less cluttered and it's so less busy. It's just like now I can really hear the groove.
Yeah, I had a teacher who was just like, he was a bass player, and
Right.
incredible bass player, and he would just be like, why don't you just, what's the purpose of those? I was like, I don't know. Like, and then it was just like, instead of like, it's just like, it's just like the whole thing. You're like, oh yeah, there it is. Like,
It's so true though. But that's the thing, right? Like it's like when when musicians start to recognize that a note and a rest are the equivalent of value. Like you need both, you know, you need time in and time out, right? Like imagine an action movie that was just 300,000 explosions over 2 hours. Like the whole explosion scene has just lost all of its effect. And then like an action movie that doesn't have a single explosion. It's like, give me like just the right amount, just a bit. Like I just need one or two things and then I'm fine, you know, just balance it out. Right. But yeah, yeah, exactly, right. So I don't want to make you late to pick up your son. But I want to say, with the dearest of thanks for coming on the show. It has been an absolute pleasure to chat with you, and I'm very glad you're able to have a conversation with me today.
Oh, thanks for having me, man. I really appreciate it. It was
Of
fun.
course, absolutely, it was a blast. Yes, and I'm hoping to do some traveling next year. Um, there's something I want to try and do with like drummers and stuff. It might be like international. We'll see. It all depends on how, you know, the wind goes. Maybe we can have another conversation on the Flat Five at a later date to chat about this whole idea and stuff. But for everyone listening, thank you guys for spending the time to listen to the Flat Five today. Make sure you check out One Up Drum Vids on Instagram, Carson Gant, and One Up Loops on Instagram, and soon enough, or what's been announced now, so also check out OneShot World. Is that correct?
Oh, you know, that's all built into One Up Loops. So it's
Perfect. There we go. All right. So everyone go check that out. All my producer buddies, you guys know exactly what to do. Get that real feel in your music. Carson, thank you again for today, my man. I really appreciate it.
Cheers, man.
Absolutely. All right, guys. You guys take care.